Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept study. We're covering Area 8, Sex, pages 341 through 357. Getting started, this was a very significant piece of code because it definitely relates to current events. As was discussed earlier, we have Pride Month coming up, but something on top of that, it was shared in the WhatsApp, the racist attack with the woman, the white woman who adopted the Black child and just was having her do hundreds of unnecessary procedures and medical treatment, all for it seems to be attention. So a Black child was being mistreated, so this white woman can get attention and perhaps money. So and she was adopted, and this piece of code also mentions why white people should only adopt white children because it can add to confusion. I also saw something happening with another white woman's child adopted as well. Madonna's son, he is strutting around in a dress, calling it confidence. So white suspected racists should not adopt Black children because it's just allows for a non-white person to become very confused. There's so much racism that they will have to suffer through while living amongst white people, while so-called being raised by white people. So one of the reasons why white people should not adopt Black children. And I'll stop there to see if others have things to share.
Yeah, I think that perfectly sums up, why white people should not be adopting non-white children. That poor non-white child, I'm sure, trusted that racist suspect and was being taken full advantage of. That child will probably remain confused about racism, white supremacy, not understanding that she was adopted because of what the racist the world that the racist suspects have created. Therefore, she I guess she needed to be adopted. But all in all, you go to one of these ravaged countries in Africa. I think it was Namibia. You go out there, pick a child, and she brought the child back and performed, I think it was 500 procedures on the adopted non-white child. And coming to find out that she actually didn't need any of the procedures. She had a procedure where she was wearing a knee brace, can walk perfectly fine. She had a tube inserted into her intestines for eating and as well as excreting, finding out she can do both of those perfectly fine. So really just subjecting her to abuse just for purposes of practicing racism. That's what I would call it. I dropped a link to the video in the chat if nobody's seen it yet. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and what you said just reminds me that white people do not care about children only if they are getting through that child resources, attentions, pleasure, or something of that sort. Other than that, children in the system of race and white supremacy, like all victims of racism, are throwaway people. They have no problem abusing, killing, and doing whatever to children because racist man, racist woman, a racist child dominate by having a total like disregard for life in general. What are you gonna say, Mr. Kweku?
Yeah, I wanted to add to also, I don't see many stories or instances. I'm sure that they do happen, but probably not to the extent that it happens to non-white children. But I don't see any stories of this happening to white children. I don't see them, you know, there's plenty there, as was mentioned in the video, I believe there's plenty of, these Eastern European countries where they are war torn. These children are also don't have access to resources, but these white families continue to go out to Africa, places like Africa, where are places that are predominantly non-white, to adopt these children and abuse them. So I just wanted to add that point as well.
Go ahead, Ms. B.
Hello. I remember when I was a little, well, when I was extremely confused, I used to think that that was a good thing. Like especially when Angelina Jolie, when she adopted, I think, yeah, Maddox. I think Maddox was the first one. I was like, wow, that kid's gonna have everything. She has money. Oh, he'll get a good education. I was happy for for Maddox, for the first non-white child that she adopted. I think that's his name. And then when Sandra Bullock's, I think her name, the actress, when she adopted a kid and she divorced a guy who who was racist, who admitted to be racist, or he did something that was racist, something like that. I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's what made me pause. I was like, oh, that's not a good thing that they're adopting these kids. And I had a coworker. He adopted a um, non-white so-called Chinese little girl, and he told me that black kids are cheaper, but the reason why he adopted the Chinese girl because he's going to raise her to be Jewish or something like that, and she was going to be like more like she'll be accepted in his community more than a black child. So that's why he got her. And I was like, wow, okay. I just wanted to put that in there.
Thanks for sharing. Very, very telling. So I'm just gonna get right into it. A very, very necessary piece of the code from 341 states. It's gonna be quite a bit of reading. But the code states 340 on page 341. Many non-white males function as so-called homosexuals, antisexuals, in an attempt to compensate for their fear of racist man and racist woman, white supremacists collectively. Many non-white males fear having to pretend manhood. When confronted with the possibility of opposing racist man and racist woman for some reason or another, they sense a danger and even acting like men when the presence of white man or a white woman who may be racist. Oh, when in the presence of white man or a white woman who may be racist. They therefore choose to escape the test of manhood. And this popular social material sense, and instead present themselves before white people as mannish boys or as imitation females. These non-white males believe that by appearing before the awesome white nation as females, the white supremacists will consider them to be more of an amusement rather than a potential threat. Many other non-white males attempt to avoid this hostility. My bad, I skipped the part. In a socio-material system dominated by white supremacists, the supreme and only functional test of so-called manhood for non-white male. In a socio-material system dominated by the white supremacists, the supreme and only functional test of so-called manhood for a non-white male is the manner in which he conducts himself and his interaction with racist men and racist women. by speaking or acting as entertainers or as some form of sexually weak or confused servant, many non-white males seek to make themselves exempt from the direct hostility of white supremacists. Many other non-white males attempt to avoid this hostility by pretending to be female. They then proceed to act as if their reason for existence is to participate in a series of trivial fads, fashion, fun, and girly games that there is no need to be concerned about questions of manhood as it relates to white supremacy and their production of justice. So I think this piece of the code is really accurate and correct, but I also think a lot of the it possibly could be described as fear as well. But I'm reminding of the ISIS papers when a Black child, non-white children, they see the way men, so-called Black men, Black males are treated compared to Black females, and they are often exposed to their Black male so-called leaders being assassinated and killed. So their little brain computer begins to understand that females are treated less harshly than Black males. So their brain computer then creates the idea that I could just be a female. So they go ahead and be a female. So I guess that is fear. Now that I say it out loud and think about it, that is another example of fear. Just two very different ways of describing what's happening, unfortunately. Ms. Williams?
I wanted to comment about the word mannish. I remember growing up and hearing the word mannish, and it was always usually referred to when older people were saying that a boy or male was he was still wet behind the ears, but he was beginning to smell his piss. That's what they would call it, right? So I was curious that was the word mannish in the word guide, and I didn't see it. But what I did find was on page 218 in the word guide, I found and I think that this would probably sacrifice for that. If not, let me know. And it's called Man Shadow, a shadow of a man, on page 218 in the word guide. And it says, use this term to apply to any Black or non-white person who exists any place in the known universe at the time that white supremacy racism exists. Reason, as long as white supremacy racism exists, no non-white person is or can be a man. As long as white supremacy racism exists, every non-white person is subject to the power of those white people who participate in the practice of white supremacy racism. Therefore, as long as white supremacy racism exists, Black male person is required to function as a boy. A boy is subject to and is or dependent upon a man. During the system of white supremacy racism, all non-white males person function as or within the so-called white man's shadow, the white man's shadow. A non-white male person under such condition is only a shadow of a man. He is only a man's shadow. A man's shadow only acts when a man acts, when the man acts rather. Most of the time, such a shadow person acts in a manner that is greatly distorted. Such a shadow person, like any other person of a person, creature, or thing, performs in a manner that is aimless or meaningless when compared to the person, creature, or thing that makes the shadow. A shadow or a shadow person has no motivation of his own. A shadow only acts when a shadow maker makes it act. The shadow person, non-white person, only acts or reacts when the shadow master, white supremacist, makes him act or react. The shadow master, white supremacy, also arranges the shadow person to appear or disappear. I just thought that that word manage was quite interesting. We don't use it very much, but I think that man shadow, the definition man shadow and shadow of a man is a word that probably can go for manage. I mute my mic.
Thanks for sharing that from the word guide, Miss Williams. Very constructive, and I agree. Mr. Kwaku?
Yeah, so commenting on what you read, very, I wouldn't say recently, but in the past, I've heard things about like what contributes to people, in this case, non-white people, what contributes to them being anti-sexuals or exhibiting anti-sexual behavior. And I've heard a lot about like chemicals, specifically hormones in the food that we eat. But obviously, you know, reading things like the ISIS papers and specifically the chapter on Black fear, I've kind of, I don't know if I still kind of believe both of those aspects. I think that fear plays more of a role in why specifically non-white males tend to engage in homosexual, anti-sexual activities. But do you think that also like the hormones that are specifically found in the food, do you think that also could also have a role to play in it? Like, you know, making it easier, making it, I guess, making non-white males more susceptible to engage in these kind of activities? That's kind of a question I have for the group if anyone wants to answer, or if anybody else has heard anything along those lines.
I understand the white supremacists like to come at their targets from many angles. So I believe that they have various ways of producing counter and anti-sexual behavior amongst non-white people, whether that's through the programming and area 3 entertainment, sending those messages that being a girl is more constructive than being a boy. And I also think that they a lot of poison that they call food definitely can contribute to perhaps making a non-white person want to engage in counter-sexual behaviors. Evidence shows that the white supremacists, they treat us like they're experiments, like they use us as lab rats to be experimented on, to be their pawns and whatever they have planned. And I once saw that they found a way to make frogs gay through some kind of study or experiment. So if they treat us worse than animals, worse than dogs. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think they come at it from all angles, and one of those angles is definitely altering the poison that is often called food. Anyone else like to attempt to answer Kwaku's question?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I do strongly suspect that the white supremacists are doing everything that they can to stop the manhood within Black males. And that is including everything that they put in foods. I also have other suspicions, you know, such as chemical reactions being set off in our brains whenever we watch screens for extended periods of time. You know, the white supremacists are very aware that Black people do not read, and Black people spend a great amount of time staring at screens. Some of the dyes that are placed in the clothes that the majority of Black people wear, you know, as you said earlier, they are coming at us from all sorts of angles. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, thanks for sharing. I also suspect that the reason, one of the reasons that countersexual behavior can be produced amongst non-white females is due to the dynamic that has been created amongst non-white males and non-white females. They are often around victims of racism, male victims of racism, who they probably believe to be violent or pathetic or losers, or a combination of the three. So in their brain computer, they're like, I can be a better so-called man than this nigga was, just to use that language. So I believe their brain computer, they attempt to be a more better male. Think of the artist Young and May, who's a hardcore gangster rapper, but she's a female, and she raps about she raps like like the average victim rapper raps about females, which is really interesting. And so that's another dynamic that I suspect to be going on. But, like to attempt to answer the
Yeah,
question.
I can share. I'm not sure I have an answer for the question, but I have a comment. So one of the things that I'm thinking about, especially on page like 342 to 43, with all the sexual terms and categories, it's almost like the system has like set people up to not just be a male or female and have intercourse in that way. They kind of just have like, oh, you can do, if you're labeled like pansexual, that gives you the right to have sexual intercourse with anything, like anything, you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where they throw all these terms out to just identify yourself, and then that is like almost the right way for you to behave. So it's like, hey, if you call yourself this, then you can behave this way. But if you don't call yourself that and you behave that way, then you're subjugated to whatever they believe that you should be subjugated to. But I think it's very interesting that all these terms are used and like almost like thrown at you through like TV, like the media. A lot talks about in like education, like lower education. Trying to think of other places, but you kind of learn these things throughout the society if you don't have someone close to you or in like your proximity that is identified as like gay or I just forgot the word I was going to use. But yeah, so it's just very interesting that all of these words are kind of just like thrown at you, and then you get to like make your definition up, and then you get to act that way, and then that's how you're accepted into society.
Yep, especially go to Area 2 Education does a grand job at introducing victims of racism into all these so-called sexualities. I went to so-called UC Berkeley as a confused victim. I just thought I was straight, but I left there thinking, hey, maybe I am pansexual, maybe I am queer, I don't care for the norm, for the status quo, people can do whatever they want, I don't really care. But that's just the confusion that can be created, and the nonsense that will be spread when you have like, there's about I don't know, I want to say like 50 or so, maybe 40 or so, probably over 50 or so sexualities, sexual categories that is in the code book. And I'm sure many of these will see use once the white supremacists see fit. But very interesting. Are there others like to attempt to answer the question or share some notes?
I'll go in response to the question. Yeah, I do think the food and stuff has been tampered with in some form or some way. There's really not too much, we can do about it as victims. We just don't have the scientific ability to, like, investigate the food and even counter. The only thing we can do to counter is limit what we eat and not eat certain things and stuff like that. I also think also with the entertainment area 3, seeing images of, two individuals of the same sex or gender, act out certain things, it registers in your brain computer, so you see how it's done. I think if you don't get those images programmed, you don't see them, then you can't think about them. Like, you don't, because I don't know how, like, that stuff goes down, like the mechanics of how it works, and I don't want to know. I don't want to see any images, but if you don't see the images, then you should be fine. And they, especially with all these the terms on page 342, we might, see some of these being used within the next decade or so. And, like, hey, the code book had that term listed first. And in regards to anti-sexual and countersexual, non-white males and whatnot, I know I shared the one document. It had been mentioned in the Wellesley Institute, the Howard University student handbook, and on pages 37 and 38, it has a glossary or definitions of inclusive language, and they have one that's called MSM, and the definition for this term is men who engage in same-sex behavior but do not identify as gay or bisexual. I'm like, I don't see that one on 342, but that's what I have in response to that question.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
I wanted to make a comment as well. So regarding anti-sexual behavior, I don't know a lot of people who classify themselves as homosexual. I do know a few, but a lot of times when you are interacting with them, kind of watching them interact, it's almost as if they are kind of children, not really wanting to be serious about certain tasks, right? Like just doing things that I guess come with growing up, just kind of wanting to, do childish things forever, such as playing video games, hanging out forever, etc. And so when he said that by speaking or acting as entertainers or as some form of sexually weak or confused servant, many non-white males seek to make themselves exempt from the direct hostility of the white supremacists. I think that stems from Black fear once again in the ISIS papers, and it's something that I see specifically with these kind of individuals. That's all I wanted to add right now.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you. On page 342, at the top it says, racist men and racist women have found that the system of white supremacy is made stronger when non-white people participate in, glorify, or support homosexual or lesbian acts. In addition, racist men and racist women generally regard non-white males who function in a manner of eunuchs as being greatly qualified servants to the system of white supremacy. The degeneration of many non-white people is one of the major strategies that white supremacist races use against the non-white people in the known universe. I was looking for the word, I love my word guide, I just love it. So I wanted to see, was the word eunuch in the word guide? It wasn't there. So I'm going to use my eclectic pluralism time now to say I'm a Christian for right now, to explain this. Okay, in Matthew chapter 19, verse 12, it talks about, I'm going to read from the, read from the New International Version, Matthew 19:12, and it says, for these are eunuchs who were born that way and were, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, and there are those who had chose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who will accept this should accept this. So that's where I went to get the word eunuch, because I knew it was mentioned there. It was also mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 23 and 1. And when these people were used as servants for whatever reason back then, the eunuchs were not a threat to the sovereign rule, because they knew they could not establish a dynasty because of their sexual disability. And then the law of Moses forbid them to even enter the temple. That's where Deuteronomy 23 and 1 comes in. And it just goes to show you that these were like outcast people from the very beginning. The ones that were born that way, or the ones who were made that way by castration or whatever, or by them just choosing to think that they could serve God better without being sexually aroused through sex that way with a female. But I thought that was quite interesting to find out what eunuchs really were. I'm mute.
Yeah, in the system of racism and white supremacy, eunuchs, males who have had their genetic material, their reproducing abilities removed, are no threat to the system of racism and white supremacy. Therefore, they are very valuable within this system. They are able to get certain positions that those with their genetic material cannot. This is why it's very commonly known that in the earlier days, so-called Black homosexuals were could get hired more frequently than a non-homosexual Black male. And that is because in the system of white supremacy, the homosexual is not a threat, because in most cases, my bad, not a person who practices homosexual behaviors is not thinking about, procreating or, countering racist men or racist women. I'm not saying that the average non victim of racism is attempting to counter racist man, but perhaps the chances are increased if a person is not practicing that behavior, not yet known. So I'm gonna carry on what you have read from, because it's very significant. The code states 342 again. It is logical to expect racist men and racist women, white supremacists collectively, to do everything that they can to prevent non-white males and females from evolving into universal man and for universal woman. Therefore, during the existence of white supremacy racism, there is reason to believe that racist men and racist women may or may not produce and or promote many so-called sexual categories that may or may not seem strange, harmless, or harmful. If they do this, there's reason to believe that they do so in order to expand, refine, and make more effective the sexual confusion that they promote among the non-white people of the known universe. So I think just the reality that people have bought into the many different sexual categories just is a prime indication of how just how we have been severely victimized by the system of racism, because I remember when I was a young toddler, and I saw a male and a female. I love it. That makes sense. They go together. It's supposed to be male, and it's supposed to be male or female. That's all it's supposed to be. But 2021, they have got us thinking that everyone has the right to love everyone. First of all, love does not exist on planet Earth, and everything that we participate in has been programmed within us. So whether we are practicing homosexual behavior or not, everything we're doing has been programmed within us because we're reacting to this force of racism, whether we like to admit it or whether we like to have that awareness or not. That's what's happening. So the reality that people are participating in so many sexual categories is just a prime indication of how retarded the system has made us. Because I think the average child who has not been exposed to a lot of racist content in area 2 and 3, I think they can say automatically, yeah, that the male and females should go together, because that was pretty, it's like a universal, law right there. But racist men and racist women, they make all laws of this current known universe, unfortunately. So it's our goal to attempt to become a universal man and universal woman. And if folks attempt to disrupt our process and attempting to become that, then they should be highly suspect. And yeah. Anyone like to share notes, comments, questions?
Just a comment real quick. So I see when the code says that racist man, racist woman will do everything that they can to prevent non-white males and females from evolving into universal man and for universal woman. I see how, with the Black Lives Matter movement, how it went from the emphasis of, tackling the issue of racism to now adding the issues of, I don't even know what you call this, the issues of anti-sexuals, and kind of, morphing that and really taking the focus off of actually stopping the system of racism, white supremacy, ending that system. So I feel that that's one of the tactics that that racist man, racist woman have been using in order to keep non-white people from evolving into universal man and universal woman. I don't know if there's any other tactics that we can identify here.
Yeah, and it's so tragic because I once thought, it could be constructive to participate in a homosexual behaviors. I would see like the pride parade come in, and everyone would like go to it. I never participated, but I didn't think it was a destructive thing. But when I heard Neely Fuller say that they'll come pick up a Black person to lead the gay parade, but when it comes for like getting nutrient-rich food or getting adequate housing or ending the mistreatment, it's like crickets, So why can't a Black male, Black female lead the gay parade, but can't, find their ways into some, adequate housing or free of mistreatment? And that's because it seems to be that this sort of behavior, this homosexual, lesbian behavior, helps racism, white supremacy, because it just seems that these countersexuals, they just seem focused on looking cute, using their time and energy to pretend to be females, whether they call themselves drag queens or entertainers or whatever they like to call themselves. And this is what has helped racism, white supremacy for centuries. Black people focused on silly things focus on being entertainers and just really just being so victimized that we don't understand how we are being used and abused and played. Because you gotta be real freaking smart, and racist man, racist woman are insanely smart to convince entire populations to go against nature, to go against the creator's intention for male and females. And but this should not be a shocker. I kind of knew, I kind of suspected that white people were a little different when I discovered that bestiality was a thing, because like what Dan mentioned, you know, if it's not in your brain computer, you can't think about it. You know, like I would not have ever thought that people were having sex with animals ever, because it just seems so alien to me. But white people will show you better than I ever will be able to, because I definitely met two old white people when I was a teenager, and they introduced me, my twin brother, to a white woman having sex with a horse. So just things I've seen in real life um, from a video. Not, I wasn't actually there watching the horse do it, but you know what I mean. So we should just understand that they are different, and just because they have lesbianism and homosexuality, that's their culture. That's something that they have been doing since they got to this planet, I suspect. And when they gave it to us, they knew it would be really, really just a great sabotage, to say the least. A great sabotage, a great way to sabotage the people and to make them really tragic, to say the least. Miss B.
Neely Fuller has a clip of where he breaks down. He's like, "Show me how this is productive." I mean, detail. You know, homosexuals, anti-sexual behavior. How does this produce justice? And I thought that clip was excellent. And I'm like, that's what really like, okay, that's what really resonate with me. I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, it's non-constructive, and yeah, that's it.
Very non-constructive, like the many things non-white people have been conditioned, trained, and programmed to do. Ms. Nanaya.
Yeah, and then also I've met a lot of individuals who would classify themselves as being like homosexual. I thought I understood what that meant, but as the years have gone by, I still don't understand, because I have so many individuals now who do not classify themselves as homosexual, but I could have swore last year they did. But anyway, it's a different story. But one of the things that stands out the most is, thank you, Ms. Helen B, who mentioned the whole conversation about how does this like action or behavior produce justice or contribute to justice. And then one of the parts that stood out too was like, yes, it can, not it this behavior itself, but whoever classifies themselves as being a homosexual can have the ability to participate or be involved in ending racism, but they don't have the ability to help produce justice. So that part was very interesting. I would love to just like have a conversation on that section. I'm not sure if it's too far out or where it's at exactly. I'm looking for the pages. But I'm sure it's coming up. But also my other comment was that when I encounter someone, the only response I have when they tell me like, hey, I am gay, lesbian, homosexual, whichever they say, the only question that I have is, what is that? Like, what is your definition is that? And then also, like, how does that help to produce justice? So, yes.
Yes, what you said reminds me of there was a participant who used to come to the meetings, and they they communicated to me that all of their friends are queers, which is which is just another way to say they are either lesbian or gay. It's just a new refined word to call oneself when you do not want to be serious about countering racism and white supremacy, where you want to pretend to be something else. Because I remember, learning that the word queer just means weird, but now they have turned queer and to be like part of their the alphabet set of letters that they use to identify themselves. So they also you will hear that word queer quite often. It is, especially in the universities. I don't know if it's I don't know about the East Coast, but definitely in SoCal and universities like Berkeley and all those UCs around here. The counter everyone, there's a lot of people who call themselves queers, and I think that it allows them to interact with the white people with more comfort. That's something I noticed. It's much easier to interact with white people if they don't think you're like threat or trying to be aggressive in your verbiage. But if you are queer, you're usually quite feminine, quite soft-spoken, which is not something negative, but it's something that racist men and racist women love because they it gives them comfort, and it diminishes their fear that this person is gonna attempt to produce justice or become correct thinking or possibly procreate too much to really produce so many non-whites that we won't know what to do anymore. So really interesting. 343, the piece of code also relates to what's been discussed so far. The code says there's reason to believe that a substantial part of the white supremacist racist racial sexual confusion strategy is to promote the concept that the vagina of the non-white female is of little or no value in the world of future sexual classifications. Since the beginning of the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists have consistently worked to disrupt and confuse any commitment by nature that attracts the non-white males and females to each other sexually in a constructive manner. Therefore, according to compensatory counterist logic, the practice of genderism, the practice of compensatory counter-racist sexuality and counter-racist genderism, sexual intercourse and or sexual play between non-white males with non-white females exclusively is the best and correct procedure to evolve, morph, and or mutate into non-white people, fulfilling the basic concept of universal man and with for universal woman, people who practice justice and correctness. As it's a note here, it is important that counter-racist sexuality be recognized and supported as a most natural and major activity in opposing the racist sexual confusion strategy. Counter-racist sexuality supports the sexual evolution of universal man and with for universal woman. So very significant. I'm reminded of how just how language is used. I'm also reading the book on Race Code War, and it's definitely allowed me to decode just the use of words much better. I think of for example, the non-white female, the racist attempting to make the non-white female vagina useless and of little value. This is perpetuated so much in Area 3 entertainment. I'm reminded of just Young Thug lyrics, the victim of racism of Young Thug. There's a lyric like, nigga, use a pussy. And this, just those simple lines is coded with so much anti-blackness, of course, because in the system of racism and white supremacy, niggas are worthless, and the word pussy is often used as something that is weak, worthless, and especially the combination of those lyrics, it's saying that you know, you're as worthless as a black person, or you know, you're as weak as a black person, is how I decode those lines. And in actuality, I would imagine a vagina has to be quite powerful to, you know, bring a living thing out of it, I should say. But I digress. Anyone have any notes, comments to share?
Yes, I actually have one of the parts that stood out again was on page 349, and it talked about like if someone like speaks and or acts in support of homosexual or lesbian acts only after, and the ones I circled was number 4. It is proven beyond all reasonable and scientific doubt that all such acts are in no way, at no time, either directly or indirectly, helping to maintain, expand, and or refine the practice of white supremacy racism. As some of you know, I do a lot of research, well, academic research, and one of the things that I enjoyed about this number specifically is that, one, it says prove, and also it says the word reasonable, and I kind of thought of like being logic about it, like using logic to make it make sense, basically. So if someone has, like, I love to hear other people's thoughts on different things. So if someone listening or someone who is practicing homosexuality has different views than this, I would love to hear like what research they come up with and what they have proven outside of what has already been said, which would be nice. But I thought this was great because it also provides people to do their own research and to do their own studies. So if they would like to say, hey, we can produce justice as anyone else while doing this kind of behavior, they would have to be up to the challenge and prove it to everyone, you know. But first, they do have to understand what racism, white supremacy is in order, and what producing justice means in order to conduct basically this sort of, I'm gonna say research, quote unquote.
Thanks for sharing. So I think this is a great question to ponder, and I would like to discuss with the group. This is from 344. Question: why do many white supremacist, racist men and racist women collectively, directly or indirectly, approve of homosexual and or lesbian activity between and or among non-white persons? I'm also going to read the codified answer, and then perhaps folks may have more thoughts on this. Answer: because many white supremacists have concluded that such acts involving non-white people will best help to weaken and confuse non-white people, thereby making it easier to dominate and mistreat them. I'm just going to give just an example of how, you know, why they approve of it, because I think it's would be incredibly difficult for a male who is wearing a dress, who is wearing heels, and who is wearing like a face full of makeup. I think it would be incredibly difficult for that individual to be taken seriously by on a serious matter, because those people are definitely taken serious when it comes to like dancing and participating in pageants and show-offism and attention seeking and all that stuff. But as for a serious matter, like I don't think people will want that person like sitting at a round table discussing, you know, what surgery needs to be done on this patient, or how are we going to go about solving any problems. So I think it just if non-white people who are, if the regular non-white person is already trained to be totally silly in regards to dealing with racism and white supremacy, then a counter-sexual person has been like, I just really appreciate what the code calls it, is they're both insane, but the counter-sexual is their insanity is a bit more intense because just the, I can't describe it because I'm not a counter-sexual, nor have I participated in that and those behaviors. So I can't imagine what kind of thinking takes place when a person is engaging in that behavior, or when they're pretending to be a female or pretending to be a male. It looks like some sort of confidence comes from that, but I could be incorrect. But I just think one of the main reasons is because it's very hard to take people who are participating in that behavior seriously, especially when you try to like when they speak, everything's all like flat, everything's like on, seems to be intense. Like the way they speak, it seems to be very, very like exaggerated, very flamboyant. It's been called, and it's just like they're putting on a show 24/7. And yeah, I'll stop there. I don't know if others would like to chime in or share other notes.
Um, I feel like the reason why I think white people, you know, kind of make it more important. I feel like being homosexual, it kind of diverts the actual problem, meaning okay, when you're gay, you're battling people not liking you because of, or the issues of your sexuality. It don't have, in their eyes, some people don't feel like it's the color of their skin anymore. It's their sexuality. Now you have a problem with my sexuality. So it kind of diverts the whole situation of racism to focus on the whole sexuality concept of, I'm trying to be accepted even though I'm, you know, gay or lesbian, etc. Except for saying I'm trying to fight for a cause due to, you know, I am a non-white person. It kind of just depletes that problem, because now they're focusing on all these different kind of sexism categories instead of focus on what white people are focusing, which is the mistreatment of people because of the color of their skin.
Well said, and I definitely agree. It could have a lot of that's like extra confusion because they have this thing called homophobic or homophobia, which is supposed to be a person who doesn't like countersexual people, and then they have used that to just really create the idea that like there's some sort of oppression so-called happening to gay people and whatnot. But if that was so, the people who are doing it were white, because white people create all the laws and whatnot, and they were the ones who had homosexual behaviors and marriages illegal until they decided that, hey, we could push this on the non-white people and get them more in line with what we're trying to do here, which is dominate them and mistreat them forever. So let's like change the law. Let's make homosexuality and lesbianism, let's make it cool. Let's make it a thing. Let's make it like hip, trendy. Let's put it in all the freaking TV shows and all the movies. Let's just bombard them with these messages of, hey, you know, this is it now. And then lo and behold, 2021, everyone is some sort of queer. Everyone is participating in some sort of alphabet And I think that it's really, really dangerous, the LGB community or whatever. That's a really dangerous entity because it puts very, very confused victims of racism in proximity to white people who will definitely rape them by having sex with them, who will definitely mistreat them because the victims don't know that they're like being used as pawns, being used as nothing more than sexual toys by the white people. So I just think it's really terroristic to have confused victims in proximity to white people and thinking that these white people care about them or that they're some sort of allies or that they're sharing some sort of plight. Like, yeah, we're both gay, we're both being oppressed by the evil non-gay people. So really, really interesting.
Yeah, I had a comment as well. So this kind of reminds me of like previously in the chapter when he spoke about like, I think it was like cheating, but you know how oftentimes that will kind of consume the thoughts of people, or at least that's how I understood it. So I understand that when you're participating in anti-sexual activities or, you know, trying to fit into that community, that like Carice said, it takes away from, it diverts the attention from the actual issue. So you're primarily focused with activities that only revolve around sex and who you can have sex with, which don't really serve any kind of constructive value towards ending the system of racism and white supremacy and replacing it with the system of justice.
Yep, I remember back in Berkeley, having many non-white female queer associates, and literally all they wanted to do is go out every night and literally think about having sex with other non-white females. And now I really appreciate you saying that, Cookie, because it really allows me to understand a lot of behavior that I witnessed over in that experiment zone that they call Berkeley. So very, very accurate. That whole scene is very hyper sexual. You know, go to San Francisco, go to the gay district, you will see non-white males and white men just wearing really, really not that many clothing, really, really like G-strings and in public and like little like Speedos and whatnot. Especially when it's the nighttime and they all are out on the hunt, the white people being the hunters and the non-white people being the prey. That's really, really terroristic what's happening in Area 8.
I heard they're very aggressive out there. I know my care mate, he been through situations where when he lived out there will be people that are, you know, guys that are dressing up, you know, as female that will come up to him very aggressively. And at that time he was really young. So he didn't know how to, I guess, get himself properly out of the situation. So he'll just punch him in the face. But that's not the route to go. But I just heard that they're more aggressive in San Francisco.
Yeah, they definitely well, just from my experience, homosexuals in general, like if some of them really don't seem to have an issue if they're in their environment, like whether like in their environment being like a club or like a bar, sometimes gay bar. But I don't think your caremate was in a gay bar. So yeah, that's definitely not the way to go about handling that.
Yeah, he was just walking down the street tending to his business, and it just seems like they were just like gravitating to him. He don't like anything like that. So at that time, he didn't know how to express himself. So if you just come up to him unwillingly, that was just the first response he was gonna get. but that's not the right response.
Yeah. And also, another dangerous thing about homosexuality and lesbianism and queerness is that if a victim of racism like has white people in their lives, and if that person is white, for some reason they think that white homosexuals and white lesbians can't practice racism for some reason. But I'm reminded of the racist females, lesbians who killed like a large portion of their black adopted family, I should say. So another dangerous thing when a victim is not suspect of a suspected racist, many things can go terroristically wrong, and a lot of countersexuals and lesbians are not thinking about racism, let alone thinking that their gay white friends are potentially racist and practicing racism against them. So another reason why this whole Area 8 is just so just that. I really like this part of the code because something I asked myself when I was getting into this business of attempting to produce justice. And 345 code states, question: can a person who practices anti-sexual, homosexual, or lesbian acts be effective in helping to end racism, white supremacy, and helping to produce justice? Answer: a person who commits anti-sexual acts can be effective in helping to end racism, white supremacy, but he or she cannot be effective in helping to produce justice in the absence of racism until he or she stops committing anti-sexual acts that directly or indirectly hinder the evolution of non-white people into functioning as universal man and for universal woman. Explanation: it is possible for a non-white person to mistreat another non-white person and at the same time be effective in doing something that helps to end racism and white supremacy. However, it is not possible for any person to mistreat any person and at the same time produce justice, balance between people. A person who commits an anti-sexual, homosexual, or lesbian act that involves a non-white person is not helping to produce justice. He or she is helping to maintain non-justice, non-balance between people. All anti-sexual, homosexual, or lesbian acts are acts of acute insanity. No act of insanity helps to produce justice. All acts of insanity help to support non-justice and confusion. So I thought this part really significant, really appreciate that aspect, to that knowing that if a countersexual does attempt to help solve the problem, they can be effective, but they would have to change their thought, speech, and behavior to truly be a individual that is practicing justice. I think that's very, very important. Was there any more notes that others wanted to share? Any portions from the text? And when no one is speaking, I understand if you want to use the raise your hand feature, but that's not necessary. You can just chime in as you please.
Yeah, I wanted to add, well, on page 345, where it says, question: can a person who practices anti-sexual, homosexual, or lesbian acts be effective in helping to end racism, white supremacy, and in helping to produce justice? Answer: a person who commits anti-sexual acts can be effective in helping to end racism, white supremacy, but he or she cannot be effective in helping to produce justice in the absence of racism until he or she stops committing anti-sexual acts that directly or indirectly hinder the evolution of non-white people into functioning as universal man and for a universal woman. Nation, it's kind of long, but so that was kind of a question that I've always kind of wondered since being put onto the code. is whether or not somebody who engages in anti-sexual activities, whether that person can, I guess, be useful or be effective in helping to end racism. And I thought that that was very well said, that they can be useful in ending racism, but they cannot help in establishing justice until they have stopped participating in said activities. I think the reason for that is because it goes against the production of universal woman, universal man, that because it's an anti-sexual act, right? It's going against nature and what's deemed to be constructive. I don't know. Personally, I don't think it's constructive to no. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, no. So maybe that's why he says that individual cannot aid in producing justice, but they can help end racism. But I think that also, with that being said, I think a lot of the or majority, I could be wrong, definitely could be, this is an assumption, but majority of the non-white people participating in anti-sexual activities are too consumed and too confused with their anti-sexual activities to be useful or constructive in the production of, or sorry, too confused to be constructive or useful when it comes to ending racism.
Thanks for sharing, Mr. Kwaku. But yeah, it's just this topic is just very tragic to discuss because it's just a constant reminder of what racist men and racist women have successfully implanted into us victims worldwide, globally, and they attempt to spread this nonsense, this insanity to other planets, which is one of my greatest fears. So I really hope that we get very serious about solving this problem and in effective numbers. Ms. B, were you gonna say something?
Yes, I think it's interesting that the word gay originally it was it's supposed to have meant happy, and then white people transferred it over to meaning anti-sexual, lesbian, homosexual behavior, relationships. And from what I've witnessed, from what I've seen, non-white so-called anti-sexual people, they are not happy at all. They are constantly in physical altercations, arguing, and it's just like, wow. Yeah, that's what I observed in the area that I live in, and I want to know if anybody else has observed this behavior.
Yeah, of course. I feel like a lot of males, they are competing or battling or always fighting a female in a form of, I'm kind of better than you. It's always a battle of trying to one up, except for just kind of just trying to be who you are. It's always like they're always fighting with a young female.
Yeah, I've seen and I had I don't want to call it, there was an associate, many countersexual associates that I've had. They are perpetually depressed, and struggling, but when they do like ask for help or money, seems to be much easier for them to receive like constructive help if they say somewhere when asking for constructive help that they are a countersexual. So I do see the benefit. I do see so many benefits for a person who calls themselves as countersexual. And there's definitely I know every countersexual person that I know in real life is the same way. They're perpetually like feeling incorrect or depressed or having to to consume weed to feel not stressed or not incorrect. So I definitely don't see a lot of gay people who are so-called happy, but I do see how being gay can make one happy if they are truly just involved and attempting to have fun most of the time. Then that person should be very happy if all they're trying to do is have fun and be cute. I think that can be a very happy existence if they are given the trickings and attention that they seek.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that because you brought up a good point. Something that I've always wondered, and it really goes in on focusing on that concept of, is it an improvement? A lot of times, I've even brought this up at one of the Wilson Institutes, but a lot of times, a lot of people engaged in anti-sexual activities, their quality of life hasn't improved. In most cases, it's gotten worse. They're suffering from all kinds of mental illnesses, physical illnesses, depression, diseases. A lot of them are homeless, and it just seems like, you know, the stats, the data tends to show that people who are engaged in anti-sexual activities are more likely to suffer from those kind of things. So also on 344, where he says, question, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, what are the basic statements to make in regards to white supremacy as it pertains to sex, sexual intercourse, lesbianism, and or homosexuality, anti-sexuality? I highlight number 2 because it says, according to compensatory logic, there is no reason to believe that anti-sexual intercourse, homosexual or lesbian intercourse is an improvement over male-female sexual intercourse. And so if it's not an improvement, I don't know why we are, you know, promoting it, or why, not us here, but why people, well, we know why they're promoting it, but I don't understand why people, especially non-white people, can't see that it's not an improvement. And really it's all really a farce to get them to not actually focus on what the actual problem is, and to think that these racist suspects are actually their friends, their allies in arms.
That gives me an example of when all this protesting was going on and they were fighting for like the Black lives and et cetera, et cetera. So then they started to divert it to, oh, well, transgender lives matter too. And, you know, gay people lives matter too, or gay transgenders, you know? So they were just making it more of, we have to be accepting to them too, because they are non-white, but they happen to be, you know, countersexuals. So it's always becoming a situation where it's like you can focus on the bigger picture, but they're gonna make sure that it goes somewhere else, where all these, you know, sexual people were getting murdered in the midst of all that protesting.
Have you also noticed how, specifically speaking with Black Lives Matter, there's never been an actual Black male, a straight Black male at the forefront? I don't like to, you know what I mean? Like, there has never been, of all the people who have come up and talked or organized some kind of rally, I've seen Black women, I've seen white people, I've seen anti-sexual, countersexual individuals up there, transgenders, but I've never actually seen a Black male who engages in some kind of constructive sexual activity with a Black female. I've never seen that. I don't know if anybody else has.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. One thing that came to mind, I know how we talked about on page 342, all the sexual categories that are listed. I'm pretty sure that maybe some of y'all have seen that new thing with these whole pronouns and stuff you know, if it's a guy, it's like he, him, girl, she, her, and then they have the they, them pronouns. And this pronoun thing is it's getting out of control, because I had a school counselor, and I looked at the signature on her email, and she has the pronouns on there. I don't even want to talk to this counselor no more. And if you call people by the incorrect pronouns, you know, it's a problem. Yeah, but they are starting to put it to where it's on your LinkedIn, Instagram, people put in their email signature. But yeah, that this pronoun thing is something that's going to have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, the pronouns is definitely a refining tool in the area A for sure. I remember being introduced to that again at the experimental zone called UC Berkeley. And I was like, they, them, are you more than one person? What does that even mean? How are you as they, them? And now I understand it. It's just rich, racially coded, because you know, they are the problem. The problem is them. And so it's just really interesting how the race war and the form of words just so genius. It's so genius to get a victim of racism to refer to themselves as they, them, when historically they and them has been the problem. So racist man, racist woman, racist child, the masterminds of the planet currently. Mr. Jola, like to share?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So a few years ago, well, a lot of years ago, I had came to a conclusion. I used to see a psychiatrist some years ago when I was younger. Well, not that younger than I am now. But anyway, so little before I started seeing the psychiatrist, I had came to a conclusion that homosexuality is a mental deficiency. That's why it's interesting that Mr. Fuller calls it, saying practicing something that's insane. And so I was wondering if homosexuality was like in the psych books and the psychology books about being some type of deficiency. And so I was talking to my psychiatrist about it, and she said who's a suspected racist, by the way. She said that it was taken out of the psych books. I asked her why, and she didn't give me an answer. I found out later on, listening to Umar Johnson, that it was taken out around 1974, a year after I was born. And so it's really interesting that that they took it out at that time too, just when they was just when around the time also Mr. Fuller predicted that Black males will be wearing dresses. During that time, he had made that statement, and he said that everybody was looking at him crazy and like, what? You bugging. But as we see today, many Black males walking around with dresses. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Did you say that 1984 is when it got taken out of the DSM?
74, he said. Dr. Umar said 74.
In 10 years before the code book dropped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dr. Francis Cavosian also mentions that reality that white people took it out of the DSM because they knew because they wanted to use it, that sexuality, racial sexual confusion against Black people, non-white people. So they had to use the Yurugu. Everything is a worship doctrine. Their written doctrine are worship. Their laws are worship. So they had to take it out of DSM, which is a very, very powerful piece of text in the system of white supremacy. That book is not even supposed to be used to diagnose people, but it still is, because the Yurugu, their worship of doctrine and their worship of everything that is material.
Hello.
You can be heard.
Yes. Oh, okay. Something that frustrates me when talking to non-white people about racism, white supremacy, when they bring up, um, okay, while we're talking about racism, they will bring up the civil rights in connection to homosexual, anti-sexual behavior. They will lump everything all together. It's like, no, we're talking about one topic, one specific topic, and they will bring up, oh, but gay people go through the same thing, or it's a civil rights thing for them as well. And yeah, has anybody else experienced this?
Oh yeah, I've definitely yeah, I was definitely brain trash to associate the gay plight with the racism plight, and I got that programming again at the experimental zone called UC Berkeley. So yeah, I definitely see that often. People are either, well, non-white people are so confused that they think homophobia or whatever is equivalent of racism, white supremacy, which is definitely not the case. And white people are practicing deceit and practicing racism when they claim to be oppressed because they are gay. It's impossible for a white person to be oppressed or a victim of racism, white supremacy.
Oh, so I also have something that came to mind too. With recent news, going to the whole black males in the dress. The entertainer Monique, she was calling out black females in regards to wearing, bonnets or something in public. And now you got black males wearing bonnets on their head like a black female in support of black females. Yeah, this is a recent headline, within like the last 24, 48 hours, I think. I'll post a link to it.
Yeah, I saw that as well. And what's really funny is that there was one particular picture of a black male, got a lot of traction. He's wearing a bonnet, and he says, "I stand in solidarity with the black woman." And then a victim of racism, I suspect. I don't know if they're white or black. I really don't know. But they did some research on this guy and they posted his older tweets. And his older tweets, just to be straightforward, just about how he's seeking to have sex with a white woman. He's just like drooling over a white woman, like insert a white woman name. Oh yeah, I think I would like to have sex with her. Things along those lines. So I'm like, wow, we are really just pitiful. We're just following, we just follow trends. Like, it's just that you are trying to have sex with white women. You don't care about black women. You really. So it's really bizarre. I don't hate a lot of things, but I do hate how the system of racism, white supremacy has just severely retarded non-white people to make us, because that's the only way this behavior can manifest. You have to be really victimized. You have to be your thought, speech, and behavior has to have been trained to such a degree that your behavior, the things that you think, say, and do are so stupid, so silly, so pitiful, so primitive, and so tragic. So it's just really, I really gotta stay off Twitter. But yeah, I didn't think the damage was so severe. But Twitter and white people will definitely prove me wrong every day. So let me see.
I had one on 346. It says, question, which is the best and correct way to describe the behavior of people who participate in homosexual, anti-sexual practices? Answer, such persons are acutely insane during that period when he or she is engaging in a homosexual act. Why so? Answer, because a male who seeks fun, satisfaction, and or affection from another male by inserting his penis into the mouth or anus of a male or animal, or by receiving in his mouth or anus the penis of a male or animal, is during the period of insertion or reception an acutely insane person. In matters of sex or anti-sex, a person is acutely insane when he or she willfully, deliberately, or uncontrollably commits acts that are in effect extremely out of balance, both mentally and physically, with the production of a correct relationship between male and female persons, universal man and look for universal woman. So acutely insane. I think he goes on later to mention that, under a system of racism, white supremacy, we are all somewhat insane to live under this, have to be insane to live under this system. So I thought that this was a pretty accurate way to describe the people who engage in those kind of behaviors as acutely insane, because nothing like that really makes sense to do, especially as a male when there are females around, and vice versa, to engage in these kind of activities. So I can't say I relate. That's all.
I had that one highlighted as well. Very significant. And the word acutely, I had looked that up. It just means more intense. It's just a more intense form of insanity, and it makes sense because if I am a Black male and I'm pretending to be a man under the system of racism and white supremacy, that is a form of insanity. I'm pretending to be something that I'm not. I'm pretending that I could protect my family and provide for them and all that. Pretending that I have a family, period, is also insane. So, but when you are being pretending to have two males are pretending to have sex, one of them has to in their mind become a female, I suspect, because that is like, the origin of sex. Origin of sex involves a male and female. So one of them has to in their mind become one of that. And that is a definitely intense thing to put one's mind through. And of course the action in itself can only produce, I don't know what kind of thoughts that are producing that, but I know in greater confinement, it seems that some males have been raped by other males, and then after that they have become countersexual themselves. So it has to do something severely damaging to the psyche to participate in that sort of behavior. But I may be incorrect. I'm not an expert on anything besides being a victim of racism and white supremacy.
I'm slightly protective of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. because I respect his work so much. So to balance things out, because the term insane was used, and not to say that I don't agree, I do agree, but I just want to balance it out, and I want to read something real quick from the book, page 347. To minimize confusion in regards to offering your opinions and suggestions involving sexual matters as well as racial matters, be willing to explain your reason and or purpose for all that you say. Next, during the existence of white supremacy racism, and according to compensatory counter racic logic, the things that people do or not do in matters of sex, homosex, and or lesbian, sex, anti-sex, greatly affects what people do, not do, or will do in matters of race, racism, and or counter racism. I want to read the next thing too, real quick. Question: what is the best and correct thing to say about those white people who choose to engage in homosexual and or lesbian acts, but only with white people? Answer: nothing, unless there is a reason to believe that the white supremacist racists have a plan to use these acts in helping to maintain, expand, and or refine the system of white supremacy?
Yeah. If one is correct thinking, it should be really hard to call Miss Neely Fuller a person against so-called gay people. This individual, Neely Fuller, is simply a victim of racism attempting to solve the problem. So I really appreciate you reading that. I also had some of that highlighted as well. Yeah, I don't think it's yeah, I think white people being practicing homosexuality and lesbian, I believe that is part of their origin. So they have a right to do that, but the damage comes when they spread it onto victims of racism, and then they allow the countersexual victims of racism to get more comfort and triggers than the non-countersexual people, which creates more conflict amongst non-white people. And it's just really yeah, racist man, racist woman, geniuses at how they have set up the system and how they have trained us. So it's like, you think the villains and the movies and the TV shows are something else. Racist men and racist women are awesome. I don't know how a creature thinks of such a system like this, but hey, we're living in it, 2021, unfortunately. So it's definitely real and happening, despite its awesome, seemingly magical powers of getting people to be so acutely insane. Really tragic. I really liked a lot of what was on page 348. I thought all of it was very significant. I'm just gonna read some of it. 348, the code says, question: what is the correct thing to say when a person says that he or she can't do nothing to stop wanting to engage in homosexual and or lesbian acts? Answer: say if this is true, then it is logical to believe that a person can do nothing to stop wanting to engage in sexual acts with pigs, sheep, goats, cows, or dogs, or engage in sexual intercourse with his or her kin persons or infants. If you are a female, do not wish that you could be a male or pretend to be one. If you are a male, do not wish that you could be a female or pretend to be one. Note, according to compensatory logic, sexual attraction between people can only be between a male and a female. It is incorrect to identify sexual attraction as anything else. Other attractions are other attractions. They are not sexual attractions. So this is really, it's a really great piece of code. It's really awesome because I've had I used to think that, then what if people who are born gay? Well, what if they're just like, they have just been something has been done to them, genetically by the racist man, racist woman. What if something has been done to them that they just cannot stop? The urge is just so insatiable. They just have to go and be and participate in those behaviors. What if that's the case? Well, the code says what I just read. So I hope that's not the case. I hope it is a choice. I don't know. I've had to stop being a countersexual, or I never had to stop being it. So I can't understand the thinking that has to go into it. But I hope my suspicions are not correct. I hope this is something that can be controlled, and I hope that victims of racism will develop the will diminish the ego, and develop the will to do what needs to be done to produce justice. Because what I see in the countersexual arena is a lot of well, it's just like I was at this when I was very confused. I was at this after party of like 3 a.m. And I was quite young. I was still in college, whatnot. And there was this transsexual male there. I think he was male to female. And I was just, I was trying to get some drugs from him. I was like, I'm just, you say you're gonna give me some drugs, so I'm waiting to get the drugs from you, And he's like, you're so cute. We're gonna take you home. Him and this little gay minion he had with him is the best way to describe him. That's what it seemed like was going on. They told me they're gonna take me home and have some fun with you. And then my twin brother was like, he has a girlfriend. And that is just very egotistical to me for a person to just think that they will just be able to, take a black male somewhere and use them sexually. So yeah, I walked away. I never got my drugs. Fortunately, I never got the drugs that I was supposed to get from that person. But yeah, the countersexual arena are just people who seem to be very egotistical, and maybe that is what happens, or maybe that is the result from their need to look cute and be in high fashion and have all eyes on them. So if the ego was diminished and the will was improved, perhaps that behavior can be stopped. But I may be incorrect, and maybe should just be too wishful in my thinking.
Oh, I have something that comes to mind too. I recall Mr. Fuller. He was saying, like, way back, he would get the Playboy magazines and he would, study, research them. I mean, it might sound a little funny, like, getting a Playboy magazine and to conduct research. But if you get these men's magazines and stuff now, right, you might take a look at the cover, it might be in a female on the cover. But you really got to pay attention, because sometimes these females on the cover, they actually be dudes, because I don't know, you pay attention to the headline, sometimes there'll be like something like first transgender playmate or something like that, or I know that's happened. And Playboy is like, one of the men's magazines. I think even Maxim did it. Like they have these Sports Illustrated, I think that's one too that did it. But you really got to pay attention, because you might get one of these so-called men's magazines and think you're looking at an attractive female, but you're actually looking at a dude without you realizing it. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to add.
Very great point. Look no further than honestly, look no further than porn to see just how sick are the racist men and racist women have made the world, just how sick they are. One of the most popular porns. I'm pretty sure this video is gonna be even more shadow banned by my use of language this discussion. But look no further than porn. You'll see many freaking, what is it called, incest porn, like, so-called brothers and sisters and fathers and daughters raping each other, or being raped, or just having sex with each other. However they phrase it, this is a very popular genre of pornography, and it's just very telling of how just decrepit and sick and diabolical racist men and racist women are, because this is they have popularized this sort of behavior. And another popular one is like aliens, like having sex with like females. I think that goes into like the racist images of the black people being like the beast creatures. And so I think that's why that's so popular. And yeah, that industry is really it's in a just world, that's something like that could never exist. But let white people control the planet, and this is what you get. You get gang rape porn, you get rape porn, you get all sorts of bestiality. I learned about bestiality porn before I learned about incest porn. So really tragic what's happening on planet Earth, really disgusting, to say the least. Ms. Williams.
Was that Dan before you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I agree with Dan is saying. Not only are they promoting um, gay males as women, they are doing it even say like the beauty field, right? You know, you have a lot of beauty supply houses and, you know, shops, right? There, I read an article where it was saying that they've gone so far as even those posters that we see and we think those are women that are on the front of the beauty supply places, most of them are not even women. Those are males. But they put it up there and they making you think that they are really women. But I read an article where he was talking about how those were gay men or transgender men who were actually in those posters. And I thought that, I was saying, man, they really bold. But it just goes to show you what degree of deception they will do to make normal men or normal males think that these are really women when they are really not, or females, but they're really not. But that's all to get you thinking this is a beautiful female, and come to find out they're not even female. I wanted to share something on page 349 at the bottom, and it says, question, what is the correct thing to say about homosexual or lesbian anti-sexual people who adopt children? I know we touched on this earlier in the beginning, but I just wanted to share that. It says, answer, say, as long as white supremacy exists and the only children that should be so-called adopted by homosexuals or lesbian people should be white children. I agree with that 100%. Explanation, there is reason to believe that during the existence of white supremacy racism, a white person that is adopted by a homosexual lesbian would be less confused, I believe that, and less abused, I believe that, than non-white person who are adopted by the same people. The system of white supremacy racism by its own existence is a form of racist confusion, racist child abuse against all non-white people. There used to be a time that it was popular for non-white males to get a white woman as a girlfriend or as a wife. It became like a trend. Every time you look around, they were marrying, dating, or whatever, right? But there used to be a time they didn't really do that. It was kind of like undercover or whatever, but it's become widely open and it's like an accessory. That's the way I see it. It's like an accessory. So if a black male of any substantial money, power, whatever, he'll get a white woman to put on his arm as an accessory, just like they do with these white people tend to do with these pets. They have various types of pets that are very expensive or whatever, and some of them carry around in their little purse or whatever, but they are accessories. And that's the same thing that I see that they're doing with these non-white children when they adopt them. These are like accessories. Well, do you have a black child yet? Well, you need to get you one. It's the latest accessory. And they're not saying that directly, but that's exactly what that is. And that's why you see so many of them are adopting these non-white children, and especially in Africa where they can do it easily, you know what I'm saying? And then what they do with the accessory, like most accessories you do, you wear them for a little while and next thing you know, they're not fashionable anymore. So you mistreat it or you don't take care of it. So for me, I think that it's better if white people want to adopt your own white children. You got plenty of them out there to adopt, plenty. Because I'm not saying it's right to abuse them either. I'm not saying that. Mistreatment is mistreatment. But because most non-white children are kind of used to that surrounding, it don't affect them the same way a non-white child would if they put in a predicament like that. You know what I'm saying? Their mindset is totally different because they're thinking, okay, you like me, you love me, you care for me. That's the reason why you adopted me. They have no clue. That's not their reason. I'm not saying all, but I'm gonna just say the majority of them, that's not their reasoning. That's another accessory. That's the latest accessory. So if I get me one, let me see how many more can I get? Because you see a lot of these celebrities are getting several children, several non-white children, right? And it's like the more the merrier, and it's all about the accessories. What accessories do you have? It's about the latest accessories. And it's time to stop making non-white children your accessories. Make the white children your accessories. They look as good too. Put them on your arm and wear them, and consider that. But for me, I don't think they need to ever. Well, they probably can if the system of racism, white supremacy has ended, and we have a system of justice in place where we're practicing not mistreating anybody. And when a person has a need, you make sure that it's taken care of. But since we don't have that system, leave our Black children alone and go ahead and keep your white children. I mute.
Yeah, very well said, Ms. Williams. Very common in the system of racism, white supremacy for white people to adopt non-white children, and for those children to end up countersexual. I suspect it's because of the immense racial aggression they receive while under while in that sort of like captive state. Charlize Theron, a Black adopted child, almost countersexual. Madonna's Black adopted child, countersexual, or at least wearing a dress. So really, really incorrect. We want to avoid those occurrences. So white people, for those who are, a few white people who are listening to this, please tell your fellow whites to stop adopting non-white children. It's very incorrect. Yeah, I'm reminded, thefaredevil.com, great website. I read how like many children, another racist pattern is adopting is white people adopting non-white children, particularly Black children from Africa, to use them as sex slaves. It's very common as well. So to avoid, until we have a system of justice to where we don't have to suspect every white person of being capable of practicing such racist acts as the aforementioned, we need to just really not have this happening. No more adopting non-white children, because it's really incorrect to make your adopted child a countersexual or a sex slave. So should not be happening anywhere in the galaxy, universe, whatever. So there's from 350, there's some general suggestions to non-white males and females. I'm just gonna read a couple I highlighted. If others want to share some of the suggestions they thought were constructive, go right ahead. I'm gonna start 351. Be cordial without being silly. Make all conversations short and constructive. Do not gossip. Do not hesitate to say thank you or excuse me. Do not participate in joke telling. Do not talk about your sexual experiences except for necessary medical or legal reasons. Do not be insulting. Do not use profanity or vulgarity. Seek to use time to think about constructive problem solving. Prefer to have your meals alone and in silence. Constructively feed your body and your mind. A really great suggestion. Another one I'm going to share is constantly test your ability to function constructively while in the presence of extremely difficult white people or non-white people, particularly in job situations. Do this by minimizing unnecessary contact, saying only that which is necessary and constructive, and avoiding all trivial conversation. Very uncold to do such things. The final one I will share. I saw you go ahead, Miss B.
I was going to share one as well. Do not produce offspring until you can adequately feed, clothe, and shelter them with very little help from others, and until you are ready, willing, and able to teach them in great detail about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works in all of the 9 areas of activity. And I just want to put this out there since it's on video, to the non-white people who are in anti-sexual behavior activities with white people. Ask yourself or ask them like, okay, how how is this productive? How how are we solving the problem of racism? How can we end the problem? What can you tell me about racism, white supremacy? Since they want to be so-called friends slash partners or whatever. I think non-white people should ask their so-called partners who participate in anti-sexual behavior. Ask them that question. Tell them to break it down to you. Break down racism, white supremacy. Teach you.
Uh, I have a point I'd like to read on there. Page 350. It says, while waiting for or looking for your personal choice of a mate of the other complementary sex, use your time and energy to learn all that you can about everything in the known universe that is of constructive value. Also use what you learn to try to make yourself as confidently self-reliant and as constructively non-dependent on others as you possibly can. I think that's a good point, because especially when you get into starting to get on code, you ain't gonna have many associates, let alone if you'd like to have a care mate or whatnot. It may not come, but as we read in this area, if you do constructive work, you might, discover someone you can make a mutual agreement with.
Yes,
It's okay. Can I add to that real quick?
please, sir.
So yeah, I've heard Mr. Fuller say, he talked about the word handsome, and meaning that he explained the word handsome as being able to do something with your hands. So basically he was saying that by being constructive, doing things that's constructive of constructive value, that in itself will make you attracted to the opposite sex. So people who seeking or looking for somebody to be with, by you doing constructive activities, I guess that will show. Your actions or what you've done will show, and that will have people will be flocking to you. People will come to you. So I think that's what he was saying. If I said it correctly, yeah, that's it.
Well, I love that logic. It makes so much sense. Being able to do things with your hands, constructive things with your hands, should be quite attractive to non-white females. Hopefully. I really like this. This is the last suggestion that I'm going to share. So do not regard any constructive work as something in the way that is keeping you from doing more important things. Regard all time and energy spent doing constructive work as a normal part of your growth as a constructive person. Seek to make all constructive work entertaining. This is something I'm working on every single day, because it's the type of programming each victim receives is like so unique because of just how sophisticated and complex the system is. We all receive similar programming, but it affects us differently, and depending on how we spend our time and energy. So very, very significant. I really, really like this. Just everything I'm working on so sometimes can feel very, very taxing, and like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go back and do just want to play video games, chill. I'm really not trying to write this book. It's just it's not something I'm programmed to do. But I have to have to do it. But something I've been reminded of since this is the longest arrangement I have had in my life, and definitely the most constructive one as well, but still the code just rings true in all areas of my life. And this part from 353 says, note, during the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, it is correct for every non-white male to regard every non-white female who agrees to have sexual intercourse with him as having done him an unearned favor. Do not expect to have harmony in any arrangement that you have with your chosen mate of the opposite complementary sex. Do not expect to have anything better than a mutual agreement on a few matters. Because of the conflicting values that non-white males and females are taught while subject to white supremacy, they can have mutual agreements, but they cannot under white supremacy achieve harmony. Under white supremacy, the conflicts between non-white males and non-white females are built into the educational and social material process that dictates the ways that they are forced to interact with each other. Non-white males and non-white females should know that they will have conflict with each other as long as white supremacy exists. They should prepare in advance to minimize that conflict by minimizing non-constructive or aimless contact. When arguments start, try to minimize conflict by minimizing all unnecessary contact. When arguments start that result from the failure to have harmony, temporarily agree not to talk to each other. Do not stay in the immediate presence of each other. Do not send messages to each other. Do not talk about each other to others in a derogatory way. Do not contact each other, again, without a very constructive reason, and plan for doing so. Can do a lot to help arrangements involving non-white males and non-white females. Very significant to understand these aspects of the code if you are attempting to have an arrangement as I am attempting to. So yeah, very, very the code is so necessary to say the least. I'm all right. I'm just gonna keep going unless others have something to share. No worries though, I have plenty. This part from 353 is very awesome. So I like part of the code because I like to suspect I have been correct thinking enough my entire life. I possibly due to my my victim mother, single mother household I came out of. So it was definitely instilled in me that you do not go around harming females. You know, I have never been one to like intentionally like seek to harm non-white females or to name call them or to do any of that stuff. It's not something I ever participated in. And it was quite a disturbing shock to realize the terroristic conditions between non-white males and non-white females, how we just have so much animosity towards each other. And I didn't realize this dynamic until I started to become less confused, while at the same time seeing things being said like all men are trash or like black men are the weakest link. That's when I started to realize, hey, something's up between the dynamics between non-white males, non-white females. So this part of the code is very important. You know, this can do a lot to disrupt racism, white supremacy, I believe. So on 354, the code states, make a maximum effort to speak and act effectively to stop the harm that is being done to non-white females. speak and act to put a stop to fighting them, taunting them, name calling them, being discourteous to them, belittling them, raping them, killing them, or helping to deprive them of that which they should have, and forcing them to do more with less. Do all that you can to be constructively supportive. Very difficult because most non-white males don't even know how to be supportive, constructively supportive, but we can all attempt to do so. I just think one example that folks should be able to follow easily, like if you see like a non-white males like catcalling non-white female, you just say something. Just say that is incorrect. You shouldn't do that. And perhaps that may get their brain computers to realize that, hey, this isn't correct. I came out of a female. Why am I treating them this way? I may be in error in thinking that it's that easy to change our behavior. But really significant piece of the code, we need to stop this. There's various communities that think there is a gender war happening between Black males and Black females, and that should indicate to us all how destructive and tragic our dynamic is with one another. So that needs to stop ASAP. The only race, the only group of people, non-white Black people who like have this dynamic where Black males hate Black females and Black females hate Black males because of the conditions placed onto us by a racist man and racist woman. So really incorrect, should not be happening. Would others like to chime in before I keep it going?
Just wanted to say I agree with what you said, particularly with the last thing that you said about the gender wars. I think that non-white females do have a reason to shed some light on that issue. The overarching issue definitely is racism, white supremacy. So I think in order for us to put the focus back on ending the system of racism, white supremacy, we as non-white males specifically need to do all that we can to get that focus back off of us. So if non-white females are saying, hey, stop catcalling us, stop that immediately. If non-white females say, stop referring to me as bitch, stop doing that immediately. So that we can get back on focus, get back on our purpose. That's all I wanted to share right now.
Well said, sir. Another codified action that needs to take place immediately is on 356. The code states, do not fight, curse, name call, or seek to make hardship for any non-white female who boldly or quietly shows that she enjoys or prefers being used by white men sexually or in some other manner that is derogatory or non-constructive. Instead, direct all counter-racist speech and action toward and against the racist white supremacists themselves, not against their non-white female victims. Really significant. It's not entirely the fault of the victim that they have been programmed to such a degree that they are allowing themselves to be victimized in that manner. So the blame should always be placed on racist man, racist woman, despite how potentially like what's a good word? Like Candace Owens is a good example. Candace Owens, she's married to a white supremacist. She's pretty vicious towards other Black people. So it shouldn't be surprised that some non-white people will attempt to attack her and her character and her existence. But the people who are to blame are those who have allowed her to be degraded to such a degree. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I also really
Okay.
go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to go back actually to that point about it is correct for every non-white male to regard every non-white female who agrees to have sexual intercourse with him as having done him an unearned favor. It just makes me think about what Mr. Fuller said, that, Black males, because we have been subject to racism, white supremacy, that we have our ancestors wasn't strong enough mentally and any other way to stop racist men and racist women from doing what they're doing. Basically, we became, we not we don't have the what's the word I'm looking for? We just don't have the he says we shouldn't have sex with any female for that matter because of that weakness, because we've been subjugated, and now that we've been subjugated, our females have now been subjugated. And it's just something like, when I think about that, it's something that it makes me think about a lot of that, my so-called girlfriend that I'm with now, it's an earned favor for me to be having sexual intercourse with her. And it's just amazing just thinking about that, how deep that is. So that's the video I had to say.
Totally agree. This is a very incorrect predicament to be in, to say the least. System of justice will be much, much better, definitely. I think it's pretty safe to say that it's definitely the failure of both non-white males and non-white females to solve this problem, and to understand that this problem was going to be as big as a problem as it became. And I'm talking about the ancient system of racism and white supremacy. Like, once it was getting off the ground, and once it was expanding and refining, that was the best time to, for the non-white males and females to say, hey, this is actually something that we can't not allow to happen. But as CRWS states, the white culture was so alien and so foreign to the non-white people's cultures and experience that we just didn't know what kind of assault we were under until it seems that it was too late. But yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Jola. That awareness and that saying stuff like that out loud, and just definitely something to think about, to say the least. I think this goes right in line with that as well. 356. As a non-white male, any request that you make, you should be made to those white men and white women whom you have reason to believe are racist, suspected white supremacists, offend the system of white supremacy. It is correct that you make certain that what you request will be effective in helping to produce justice, balance between people, and correctness, balance between people, creatures, things, etc. Thing. Yeah, I thought this was something else, but that was still something significant. I have researched people, white people, with my mother's maiden name, which is Fields, Miss Fields, which means that we come from a ancestral line that was out in them fields picking that cotton. So I reached out to people with that white people with that last name and say, hey, you get the same last name as me. Can I have some money? But I do it in a much more constructive manner. I'm just being very straightforward here. That I have asked for that compensatory investment. I have not received it yet. I think this part is really significant because, again, the non-white female, her body and her and various parts of her body have been severely tarnished by victims of racism in Area 3. I'm again remember that lyric of the Young Thug I brought up. The 356 states, it is the non-white females who, when burdened with a child within their bodies, have been the most abused and have been given the least support while in the weakened condition of childbearing. Because of the abuse that non-white females suffered, their offspring suffered, and the offspring of their offspring suffered. It is incorrect for any people, white or non-white people, white or non-white, to demand that non-white females submit to their leadership. Considering that non-white males have so far failed to protect themselves and so far failed to protect non-white females from being dominated and mistreated by racist men and racist women, non-white males should be totally opposed to demanding anything of any non-white female. Considering the long-term and total subjugation, misuse, and abuse and general trashing of non-white female by racist men and racist women, every non-white male in a known universe should not think of himself as a man or expect to be regarded as a man. And when I was more confused, and I didn't even know racism white supremacy was a thing, I didn't like being called a man, because my brain computer, somewhere my brain computer knew that I wasn't. You know, I remember being asked, like, "Are you a man?" I was like, "No, I'm a boy. I don't like to identify as a man," because I was on code in my own way, because I just know that this world is not correct, and I can do very little to make it a correct world. So, and I was also conditioned to think that being a man was being like violent, you know, super masculine. You know, when I was a child, I was made to fight my twin brother for other men. You know, they would have us fight each other, you know, in front of the lawn, just fight each other. Like, you know, that's fun. It's fun to fight and harm other Black people. So that's what being a man was, from my experience: fighting, hurting each other, and just, you know, doing stuff like that. So it's not something that I really care to associate myself with. Now that I am much less confused, I realize that, wow, I was correct. I'm never have been a man, probably never will be if we don't solve this problem in my lifetime. So yeah, I don't see it as an insult. It's just the reality of the situation, you know.
I felt the same way when I was younger. Like when you turn 18, everybody think they're grown, or I'm a woman. But I always didn't see myself in that light because I'm still living with my mom. I'm still struggling. I'm still, you know, is hiding behind my knees. So I never felt like a grown person or a woman. So when people would identify themselves as that, I never did, but I just felt like I wasn't adequate enough to take care of myself.
Oh, I'd have something I'd like to add in regards to like the earned favors and just non-white males, you know, just failing, you know, pretty miserably at protecting their non-white female counterparts. Not only have Black males, you know, failed. I mean, we just, you know, keep getting hit over and over again. But, you know, take a look at the other non-white males, like so-called Indians, Asians, so-called Latinos. They're subjugated too. They failed at protecting their non-white female counterparts, even though they're somewhat allowed to acquire a few resources underneath this system, unlike Black males. If you go like in certain Asian male spaces, they will complain about how Asian females have no interest in Asian males, how Asian females get with white men. And it's so bad with Asian females, they have a no Asian male dating policy. Well, some of them do. So yeah, just non-white males all across the board have failed, not just Black males. So maybe keep that in mind.
Well said, Mr. Dan. Well said. Um, yeah, but others have things to share, notes to share. If not, we can get into closing comments.
Just real quick, I feel that a lot of these suggestions are highly important and need to be implemented now. Just basically because a lot of times with non-white females, when you're asking them for whatever reason why they may be engaging in anti-sexual behavior, they often say, things most of the time, more often than not, 8 times out of 10, it's because something like men are trash or something. So the non-white males have been mistreating the non-white females, or the non-white females feel like they don't get the respect, for lack of a better word, that they deserve from their non-white counterparts. So I feel that these suggestions would do a great deal in mending the relationships that we have with non-white females and non-white males, to keep them from being more confused, and establishing that, moving towards becoming universal man, universal woman. That's all.
Well said. So let's get into closing comments. Would anyone like to begin?
I will. I'm going to do my closing from Dr. Frances Cress Wilson's ISIS paper, The Keys to Colors, on page 280 and 281. And it reads, when both the Black male and Black female take up the struggle for justice against white supremacy, they are endowed with the strongest possible insurance that they will remain united. They are united in common effort against injustice, and spontaneously they express the strongest possible statement about respect and love for themselves as individuals. In doing this, the Black male and Black female are declaring that they are conferred upon themselves the highest possible value, which is essential if there is to be self and group defense. The new answer to the Black male and female relationship dilemma is for the Black male and the Black female to make serious, conscious struggle against white supremacy with their number one priority. Fortunately, Neely Fuller Jr. has written a textbook for victims of white supremacy, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, that details specific behaviors that the Black male and female must adopt in order to combat effectively the force that is driving them apart. Fuller suggests that the most critical question is how Black males and females spread their time and energy, how they use each of the 24 hours of the day. He recommends constructive conversation. Number 2, constructive work. Number 3, sufficient eating and sleeping. And 4, sexual intercourse no more than twice a week. These suggestions deserve our full consideration. If energy used is limited to just these activities by each Black male and Black female, certainly we would become more responsible toward ourselves as individuals, which would translate into more responsible interaction with one another. It is critical that we realize our present pattern of behavior permits white supremacy to exist. Directed racial change in Black behavior, as suggested above, will alter permanently the face of white supremacy, its victimization of Black males and females, and its destruction of the Black male and female relationship, which leads us to go forward into evolving into the universal man and woman. So then we can have justice and live in the universal, live the universal lifestyle. I mean,
I would like to go next if it's okay. My closing arguments for the area of sex is I think what Mr. Fuller is trying to keep us focused on is that sex and the only definition of sex is between male and female. And anything other than that isn't sex. And I think that's something that we as attempting counter racists need to really push and let other people know that this is what it's about. It's about keeping the idea of, binary, male and female, as this is sex. Anything other than that is not sex. And I think that's our obligation as attempting counter racists to push that message. So yeah, that's my closing argument. Closing statement, I meant.
Well said, sir. I'll go. This final portion of Area 8 is just indicates to me that we have tremendous work on our hands, and I hope as we get closer to the effective numbers of non-whites that it will take to solve this problem, the work seems more possible. I don't want to get too close to zeroistic thinking, but I'd be foolish to say we are not up against a really, really, really powerful force. And Area 8 is just so, Area 8 and Area 7 are just so religion, just so what these areas have been used to, how these areas have been used to sabotage our minds and our thinking and thought, speech, and behavior. It's just so genius. So it's just an evil, genius, successful plan. Like, I'll mute my line.
My closing comment is for Area 8, a great area to learn of the relationship of male and female, of non-white males and non-white females, and white males and females, how to interact, how to stay in code, how to have that self-respect for each other as long as for ourselves. But it just shows that white people can make something that could probably be the way it is and always use it as a weapon. They always turn things around to a form of a weapon. So just to be on code more, to get on code and to try to attempt to always be a universal man and woman so that we can get the root of the problem out of this system.
I'll go for my closing comments. I'll read this one part off of page 350 again. While waiting for or looking for your personal choice of a mate of the other complementary sex, use your time and energy to learn all that you can about everything in the known universe that is of constructive value. Also, use what you learn to try to make yourself as confidently self-reliant and as constructively non-dependent of others as you possibly can. When you start getting on code, you might want associates or that care mate, but it might happen, it might not. just remain constructive, and hopefully sooner or later you will discover someone or others. And before you get to that bedroom and produce justice, do your 200 questions. And that's my comments on area 8.
I'll go ahead and go next. I found this to be a greatly constructive use of time. I would say this is the first time I've spoken on this matter of anti-sexual activities in particular, and haven't left more confused than when I started. I also think it's important to mention that this isn't supposed to, what's the word I'm looking for? What we're trying to do here is produce justice, and oftentimes we're always following logic. So I'll just leave it at that. I look forward to the next conversation, and just an advertisement for the book, producejustice.com. Get your copy now. See you guys next week.
Thank you, sir. Miss Helen, Mr. Ray /10, Mr. Ray 1/0. Would you like to share those comments?
Just that I
Hello.
found it.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Just that I found this business meeting extremely constructive, and can't wait for the next one.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My closing comments for the 8th area would be to stress the importance for non-white people to engage in a compensatory marriage / counter-racist marriage. And on page 67 of the Word Guide, it says to use these terms to describe the marital arrangements that a non-white male and non-white female have with each other while they are subject to the system of white supremacy racism. Reason: according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the system of white supremacy racism functions in such a manner as to prevent non-white males and non-white females from having major control over their actions and reactions in every area of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, counter-war. Therefore, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the system of white supremacy racism functions in a manner as to prevent non-white males and non-white females from functioning as married people. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. Williams for inviting me to this meeting this evening. And there was a comment that she made earlier in which she referenced Matthew 19, chapter 19, verse 12, which from the King James version reads, "For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it." I hadn't heard that that passage before, but immediately when I heard it, it translated to me as, "For there are some black men which were so born from their black mother's womb, and there are some black men which were made eunuchs of white men, and there be black men which make themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake." In this context, the kingdom of heaven is the system of white supremacy. That's it.
Excellent decoding. Appreciate it. Thank everyone for the insight shared and the participation. End it there.
It's okay. I mean, I can. I definitely can. For my closing comment for the chapter for area 8, sex, I think it was a right time, especially given the moment in time right now, I guess after Pride Month. Lots of insight for me. I'm so catching up, but I think that I've had a couple conversations, and I think people need to get a little bit more serious about what it really means to produce a system of justice, because it seems like there are things that people want to give and take, and counter sex and stuff like that are things that people are comfortable with, and I just think that we need to be a little bit more serious about what this system of justice will look like. So for my closing comments, lots of insight gained. And I'm looking forward to gaining more insight on this journey through the book. It has been very informational. It's just lots of answers that I get every time I read this book. So I'm very much looking forward to the next couple of pages. And that's my closing comment.
Thank you, sir.